Moments after the ceasefire announcement, Israeli bombardment continued in Gaza, killing 18 people, and with days to go before the deal comes into effect. But just the prospect of peace brought tears of joy to Palestinians who've endured 15 months of death and destruction. I cry from my heart, she says.
You can see the jubilation in the faces of the people here. We are really overwhelmed with happiness because the bloodshed has ended.
Optimism in Israel, too, tempered by uncertainty for hostage families.
Actually, we don't know their conditions. We are hoping they are good and well, and we'll see them soon as possible, alive and healthy.
33 hostages are to be freed, the first 3 on Sunday. In exchange, Israel is to pull back its troops to a perimeter within Gaza's borders less than a kilometer wide. It's agreed to let in 3 times more food and other aid to ease the suffering and to let Palestinians back to their homes, or what's left of them, in Gaza's north. And like the last time there was a brief ceasefire to exchange hostages for prisoners, hundreds of Palestinians are to be released from Israeli jails. Hamas was defiant, taking pride in its devastating October 7th attack and its refusal to be pushed out of Gaza. Israeli leaders defended the deal. It will bring deeply painful moments, says President Isaac Herzog, but it's needed to bring our sons and daughters home. Some Israelis protested the ceasefire after it was announced, vowing to keep fighting against Hamas. But for most, freeing hostages is Israel's most pressing priority.
Israel's government hasn't shown nearly as much urgency, with hardline members of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition vowing to vote against the ceasefire in Parliament here. Adrienne?
So, Sasha, a lot of people, including the U.S. president, have noted sort of repeatedly today that this deal has been on the table in some form since last spring.
Well, Adrienne, domestic political pressure probably has delayed it for months. And even now, Netanyahu's office says he won't make any official announcement about the deal until a few more details are worked out.
All right. Sasha Petrusik in Jerusalem for us tonight. Thank you, Sasha. Senior international correspondent Margaret Evans joins us now from London. So, Margaret, obviously a lot of hope tonight, but certainly real challenges to making this deal last.
That's right, Adrienne. I think, what negotiators have done is managed to win this very fragile 6-week truce by putting off some of the bigger issues to the second and third phases of the deal, because that's where, the real bottom lines for Hamas and for Israel lie. Hamas wants a permanent ceasefire. It wants all Israeli soldiers out. Israel says it can't do that and guarantee the security of its citizens. And if you'll remember, the Israeli government has said there can't be an end to the war until Hamas is completely eradicated. In phase 2, there'll also be another discussion about the remaining Israeli hostages and remaining Palestinian political prisoners in the eyes of Hamas that they want to see released from Israeli jails. Israel says those are people with blood on their hands, and we can't let that happen.
And Margaret, it really is the case that the further down the text of that deal you get, the more snags you see, right? The post-war plan in phase 3, for example, in Gaza is really tricky.
That's right, Adrienne. That's when they're supposed to talk about reconstruction of Gaza, if that's even possible, given the scale of destruction there now. It also implies that that's when you'd be talking about who's going to be in charge in Gaza. The Israelis want to be able to dictate that. The Palestinians say that's not possible. I think then you find that you've got, the biggest problem of all saved to the end, and it leaves more time for things to go awry in the interim.
All right. Margaret Evans in London. Thanks, Margaret. World leaders have been quick to show their support for this deal while also emphasizing the need for the ceasefire to hold beyond that first phase. And in the United States, as Paul Hunter shows us, there was a dispute over which president made the difference.
At long last, I can announce a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached.
For Joe Biden, mere days from the end of his presidency, a triumph he was quick to claim as his own.
This is the ceasefire agreement I introduced last spring. Today, Hamas and Israel have agreed to that ceasefire agreement.
It's clear the Biden administration played a key role in forging the deal, but so too the special envoy of incoming President Donald Trump, Steve Witkoff, who worked with and alongside the Biden team in the talks overseas. Trump now also claiming credit. This epic ceasefire agreement, he wrote, could have only happened as a result of our historic victory in November. Trump had earlier said there'd be hell to pay by Hamas if there was no deal by the time he takes office Monday. For what it's worth, Biden was asked, so who gets credit for this, him or Trump?
Is that a joke?
That aside, Prime Minister Trudeau among those, saying the deal brings hope.
Hope that we can now focus our attention on a true, lasting political solution to this conflict, a two-state solution with Israelis and Palestinians living side by side in safety, security, and dignity.
Long overdue news, wrote UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Our attention must turn to how we secure a permanently better future, grounded in a two-state solution.
Un'ottima notizia.
Great news, said Italy's foreign minister. It's an important step towards peace. And from the United Nations,
our priority now must be to ease the tremendous suffering caused by this conflict.
but the impossibly complex job of getting to a permanent peace now moves to the next president. The challenge and resolve to see the deal all the way through is for Donald Trump. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
News of a ceasefire has come with a flood of emotions here in Canada. Hope, of course, mixed with concern it could all fall apart. Sarah Levitt now with how those with loved ones caught in this war are navigating this new uncertainty.
Jawed Abu Aza's eyes have been glued to the TV for days. News of the ceasefire brings the Palestinian Montrealer cautious relief.
Now we have freedom. I know there is no houses, there is no other place, but at least they can sleep without airplane. We were talking 15 months. Every day, war.
Abu Aza has spent those months trying to help friends and family who have survived while mourning the deaths of those who have not.
I lost a lot of people.
We're fighting in the hope of getting his body back.
Israeli-Canadian Yasmin Majal has also lost someone. Her cousin Omer Nutra was thought to be alive, but this past December, the soldier's family found out he'd been killed on October 7th.
It is a very difficult shift to make from the hope of hugging him again to the hope of burying him.
His body believed to be in Gaza.
Right now is the most hopeful that people have been.
The impact of this war has transcended borders.
It's ushered in, I would say, an almost unprecedented dynamic of divisiveness and polarization.
Canada has seen encampments go up and protesters out on the streets. Some led to clashes between pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian demonstrators, others more serious. Shots fired at schools and firebombs thrown at synagogues.
What we've seen, as I said, has been an unprecedented explosion of anti-Semitism in the campus community, in the public squares of Canada.
A ceasefire may not change that, Kotler says, but he has hope. Others say the next months are key.
If this ceasefire does not hold, no one can stop the situation of getting back to being crazy again. What's next? You're happy, but you're also anxious.
A sentiment shared by many. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.